When my husband demanded a divorce after 15 years of marriage, I didn't scream, beg, or argue. I simply smiled, signed the papers, and let him believe he'd won. That night, as he celebrated his newfound freedom with his mistress at our favorite restaurant, I walked up to their table with perfect composure. "Congratulations on your freedom," I said, sliding an envelope toward him. His smug grin disappeared the moment he opened it. Inside wasn't a love letter or a plea, but DNA test results, proof that the crimson lipstick smeared on his white dress shirt wasn't mine. That shirt had ended my marriage, not with a fight, but with the quiet horror of truth that I remember the discovery vividly. Tuesday, 9:17 a.m. The twins were at school. Emma was at piano lessons. I was gathering laundry when I spotted William's gym bag shoved behind his polished Oxford shoes. The zipper was partly open. Inside was the shirt he'd supposedly worn during an emergency surgery the night before. But no surgeon walks into an operating room with blood-red lipstick on his collar. For years, the world saw us as the perfect Carters. William, the brilliant heart surgeon who saved lives. Me, the devoted wife who raised our children and kept the household flawless. At hospital galas, he'd toast me in front of colleagues. "Jennifer makes it all possible. I couldn't do what I do without her." People envied us. 3 children, a beautiful home in Oak Heights, stability, prestige. The American dream. But dreams crack quietly before they shatter. The late nights at the hospital. The endless golf weekends. The way our conversations turned into nothing more than scheduling logistics. When he was promoted to chief of cardiac surgery, I threw a surprise party to celebrate. He smiled in public, then scolded me in private for embarrassing him. That night, he slept in the guest room. I told myself it was stress, pressure, normal. I should have listened to my sister when she warned me. Men in power change, Jen. But I brushed it off. I wasn't insecure. I wasn't paranoid. I trusted my husband. Until one morning, as I planned a romantic anniversary trip, his phone buzzed on the counter while he showered. I only wanted to check his schedule. Just one glance. Instead, I saw the truth. "Rebecca Harrington. Last night was amazing. I can't wait to feel you again. When are you leaving her?" Message after message, photo after photo. 8 months of betrayal spelled out in digital ink. They laughed about me. My husband and his mistress mocked the naive wife who still planned surprises, who still believed there was something to celebrate. I put his phone back, made his coffee, kissed him goodbye, and began planning my own surprise. When William left for the hospital that morning, I stood at the sink and vomited until nothing was left but bitter bile. That night, after the children were asleep, I confronted him in our bedroom, the same room where we had conceived our children, grieved our miscarriages, celebrated IVF success, and where he once held me through my father's death. "Are you sleeping with Rebecca Harrington?" I asked. My voice was steady, though my body trembled inside. William didn't even flinch. He calmly removed his watch, set it on the nightstand, and said one word. "Yes." "How long? Does it matter?" His tone was so cold I barely recognized him. Then, as if delivering a diagnosis instead of a confession, he added, "I want a divorce, Jennifer." It wasn't a confession. It was an execution. "Why?" I whispered. "I've outgrown this life. I've outgrown us," he said, gesturing around our bedroom as if it were a prison. "I've given 15 years to this marriage, to these children. I'm 45. If I'm going to start over, it has to be now." "Start over," I repeated, stunned. "William, everything you are, everything I am, we built together." He laughed bitterly. "I save lives every day. What do you do, Jennifer? Bake cookies for school fundraisers? Organize my sock drawer? I built this life despite the anchor of domesticity." His words landed like blows. I had put my own teaching career on hold for his medical school dreams. I had run our household, raised our children, and hosted endless hospital dinners to boost his career. "You'll be taken care of financially," he continued, cold and detached. "The children will adjust. They always do." That night he slept in the guest room. I lay awake staring at the ceiling, realizing I had been living in an illusion. By morning he was gone, off to the hospital, leaving only a lawyer's business card on the kitchen counter. But what I didn't know then was this. The lipstick stain, the affair, the mistress, those were only surface cracks. William's betrayal went much deeper. And what I was about to uncover would make Rebecca Harrington seem like nothing more than a footnote in his long history of deception. The day after he left the card, I booked an appointment with the most ruthless divorce attorney in Oak Heights, Patricia Winters. Her first advice was blunt. Document everything, Jennifer. Especially the finances. That evening, after tucking the kids into bed with soft lies about Daddy being busy at the hospital, I opened our home safe. Inside were 15 years of tax returns, investment records, property deeds. I thought I would find reassurance. Instead, I found rot. Withdrawals $5,000, $7,500, sometimes $10,000 at a time, all marked to an entity called Riverside Holdings. Over 2 years, nearly $250,000 had bled out of our savings. The bank confirmed my fears the next morning. Riverside Holdings was an LLC. Solely in William's name. No paper trail, no explanation. Is this normal? I asked Patricia, sliding the statements across her desk. She scanned the numbers with narrowed eyes. Hiding assets? Yes, that happens. But this? This looks calculated. Long term. Then she said something that made my stomach turn. The name Nathan Brooks ever come up? It had. Vaguely. Dr. Nathan Brooks. One of William's colleagues who had quietly disappeared from Ashford Medical Center 3 years ago. William had brushed it off as professional differences. Patricia leaned back in her chair. He came up in another case I handled. Might be worth a conversation. It took me 5 calls to find him. A small family clinic 40 miles away. When his receptionist heard William's name, she put me straight through. Mrs. Carter. His voice was heavy, almost resigned. I've been expecting your call for years. We met at a coffee shop halfway between us. He looked older, worn down, gray at the temples, deep lines etched into his face. He stirred his coffee slowly before speaking. I always knew this day would come, he said quietly. I just didn't know whether it would be me who broke first, or William. I leaned forward, my pulse hammering in my ears. What do you mean? Dr. Brooks' words unraveled what was left of my world. He spoke softly, almost as if ashamed to say it aloud. The fertility clinic at Ashford had a problem. He explained how couples reported failed IVF attempts despite perfect medical conditions. The discrepancies in lab reports were small, but enough to raise suspicion. And during his quiet investigation, he discovered that the clinic director, Dr. Mercer, had been falsifying results, substituting specimens, altering documentation, manipulating outcomes to protect the clinic's reputation and funding. When Brooks confronted Mercer, the truth came out. William wasn't just aware of the scheme, he was complicit. That's impossible, I whispered. William wanted children. We both did. But then Brooks slid a small thumb drive across the table. Hospital records, lab reports, and William's signature authorizing what he called procedural modifications, a euphemism for tampering with specimens, including mine. Why? My voice cracked. Brooks hesitated. At first, career advancement. Mercer was on the board that later promoted him to chief. But with your case, Jennifer, it was different. He explained that William carried a hereditary heart condition, hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. Mild for him, but with a 50% chance of being passed on to his children. A surgeon with William's ambition couldn't risk having genetically linked kids with a flaw that might stain his reputation. The weight of the truth crushed me. I gripped the edge of the cafe table just to stay upright, so during every IVF treatment, every painful injection, every failed round, every tear, I had never once conceived with William's sperm. Our children had been created with anonymous donors. All while William pretended otherwise. I left the meeting with the thumb drive heavy in my purse and a contact for discreet genetic testing. That night, while the children slept, I collected samples, hair from their brushes, saliva from their toothbrushes, even one of William's combs. The 2-week wait for results was excruciating. During that time, William accelerated the divorce. His lawyer painted me as unstable, unfit, financially dependent. They pushed a settlement that would leave me nearly destitute. It was a carefully calculated strategy. Break me, corner me, force me to yield. But while I smiled at school drop-offs and clapped at Emma's piano recital, inside I was transforming. My grief was crystallizing into something colder, something focused. At night I researched fertility fraud cases, doctors using their own sperm, clinics mixing embryos, families finding out decades later, but never, not once, had I found a case like mine. A husband deliberately ensuring his wife's children would never be biologically his. A family built on lies. The results arrived on a Tuesday morning. "We have your report, Mrs. Carter," the technician said. "Email," I whispered. Minutes later, I opened the file. The clinical words were brutal in their detachment. The alleged father is excluded as the biological father of the tested children. Probability of paternity, 0%. On my hands didn't shake this time. I printed 3 copies. .1 for my lawyer, .1 for a safety deposit box, and 1 slipped into a cream-colored envelope bearing Ashford's logo, stolen from William's home office. This wasn't about an affair. It wasn't even about money. This was about the very foundation of my life, my motherhood, my marriage, my children's identities, engineered as a lie, but William had underestimated me, just as he always had. With the DNA results, my grief hardened into a weapon, and I intended to use it. I started by contacting the other families from Dr. Brooks' list. 27 couples. Most refused, afraid to question the origins of their children. But 5 agreed to meet. The Miller's twins looked nothing like them. The Patel's daughter had unexplained medical issues. The Johnsons, the Garcias, the Wilsons, each had their own unsettling stories. Together we began to piece together a pattern. A scandal. A fraud too big for Ashford to bury forever. And when the time was right, I would make sure William Carter's perfect life collapsed, just as mine had. Conceptions after multiple failed attempts. Once Dr. Mercer took a personal interest in their cases, families were simply relieved. "We were just so grateful," Sarah Wilson confessed, tears streaming down her cheeks. "We never questioned the how." My search eventually led me to Diane Fletcher, a former nurse who had worked at Ashford's fertility clinic for over a decade. We met in her small apartment outside the city, the space crowded with filing cabinets stacked against the walls. "I kept records of everything," she said, her hands trembling slightly as she pulled out a leather-bound journal. Inside were patient names, procedural modifications, signatures authorizing changes. "They thought I destroyed it all when I left. Why didn't you report them?" I asked. Diane gave a bitter smile. "I did. To hospital administration, the medical ethics board, even the police. Every time the investigation just disappeared. Your husband has powerful friends, Mrs. Carter." She turned the pages, showing entries dating back nearly 8 years, meticulous documentation of specimen substitutions, falsified consent forms, and procedural irregularities. Over and over, William's signature appeared, authorizing protocol adjustments in cases with genetic concerns. "And my case?" I whispered. Diane hesitated, then flipped to a page marked with my name. The dates matched each of our IVF procedures, written in stark black ink. Special instruction from Dr. Carter. Specimen replacement authorized due to quality concerns. No donor identification recorded. My stomach dropped. I photographed every page, every signature, every damning note. As I left, Diane pressed a card into my palm. "Medical Ethics Investigation Unit," she said softly. "Ask for Agent Dawson. Tell him I sent you." Michael Dawson worked with the Joint Task Force investigating healthcare fraud. He'd been circling Ashford for 18 months but couldn't break through the wall of silence. "Your evidence could be the key," he told me at our first meeting. "But we'll need more: financial records showing kickbacks, recorded admissions of guilt, testimony from someone currently inside." I promised him I'd gather it all. Meanwhile, I maintained the facade of a woman reluctantly accepting her divorce. I smiled sadly across mediation tables, nodded through custody evaluations, and pretended to weigh William's insulting financial offers. "You're being surprisingly reasonable, Jennifer," William remarked smugly after one particularly tense meeting. "The children come first," I replied softly. "I just want what's best for everyone." His confidence grew with each concession I feigned. He began bringing Rebecca to school functions, introducing her as though she already belonged. She even stayed overnight while the children visited his new downtown apartment. But behind my calm smile, I was recording conversations, photographing documents, building a case piece by piece. When I hired a private investigator to look into Rebecca's past, I expected nothing more than employment history. Instead, the report left me stunned. Rebecca wasn't just William's colleague or his mistress. She was the daughter of Melanie Harrington. 5 years earlier, William had performed a routine valve replacement on Melanie. It ended in tragedy. The official report cleared him of wrongdoing, blaming Melanie for failing to disclose a medication that complicated her surgery. William's reputation remained spotless, but the truth buried in records Agent Dawson uncovered told another story. William had been operating on minimal sleep, fresh off a weekend in Chicago with Rebecca. His fatigue led to errors, the hospital covered it up, and Ashford quietly paid off the Harrington family. Melanie's husband died a year later from stress-induced heart failure, leaving Rebecca alone. She changed her name, erased traces of her past, and then methodically inserted herself into William's life. First as a colleague, then as his lover. Her revenge had been years in the making. Just like mine. For a moment I considered confronting her, perhaps even suggesting an alliance. But I dismissed the thought. Rebecca's motives were emotional, volatile. Mine needed to remain calculated, precise. Over the next month, I gathered sworn testimonies from former employees. I tracked the money trail from Ashford to Riverside Holdings to offshore accounts. And I secured statements from patients whose treatments had been compromised. Agent Dawson built a legal case. I constructed something more personal. The complete dismantling of William Carter's carefully cultivated image. One evening, during a co-parenting discussion, I nudged the conversation toward dangerous ground. "The twins have your eyes," I said lightly. "Good genes." He smirked, distracted by his phone. "Do you ever wonder if they inherited your heart condition?" I asked. His head snapped up. "What?" "Hypertrophic cardiomyopathy," I said calmly. "Dr. Brooks mentioned it." William's face darkened. "Brooks should keep his mouth shut about things that don't concern him. Don't our children's health concerns concern you? Or me?" "There's nothing to worry about," he said sharply. "I had them tested years ago. They're fine." I froze. "How could you test them without telling me?" "I'm their father and a doctor," he said coldly. "I made a medical decision." The recording captured every word. His acknowledgement of the genetic condition, his secret medical testing of the children, and his continued pretense of biological connection. It was the final piece Agent Dawson needed. Timing couldn't have been more perfect. The annual Ashford Medical Center Gala was approaching, the most prestigious event on the hospital's calendar. William had been selected to receive the Physician of the Year award for his groundbreaking contributions to cardiac surgery and unwavering ethical standards. The invitation arrived at our house, still addressed to both of us despite our pending divorce. William texted that he'd be taking Rebecca as his date, but I was welcome to attend if it wouldn't be too awkward. I replied with a perfect blend of wounded dignity and gracious acceptance. "I wouldn't miss it. You deserve this recognition." What William didn't know was that I had already met with the hospital board chairman, sharing select pieces of evidence. A special session had been scheduled immediately preceding the gala, a session where Agent Dawson would present the full case against William, Dr. Mercer, and the fertility clinic. As I prepared my gala dress, a sleek black gown that Rebecca had once mocked as suburban mom tries sophistication. In a text to William, the first received notification that William and Rebecca would be celebrating at Vincenzo after the award ceremony, our special restaurant where he proposed 15 years ago. It was the perfect finishing touch to my carefully orchestrated revelation. The envelope with the DNA results was ready. The authorities were prepared. Every detail had been considered for the first time in months, I felt a sense of calm certainty. William had spent 15 years constructing a lie. Tomorrow night the truth would finally be told. The night of the Ashford Gala arrived with perfect dramatic timing. Thunderstorms threatening, but holding off the sky dark with potential. I entered the hotel ballroom alone, wearing the black dress William had always said made me look trying too hard. My hair was swept up, diamond earrings, a gift from a husband who no longer existed, catching the light as I moved through the crowd of medical elite. I spotted William immediately, holding court near the stage, arm possessively around Rebecca's waist. She wore crimson, the same shade as the lipstick that had started this cascade of revelations. Hospital board members clustered around them, laughing at his jokes, admiring his perfect companion, the picture of success. The secret board meeting had concluded just 30 minutes earlier. I'd watched from a side room as Agent Dawson presented the evidence: financial records, patient testimonies, Diane Fletcher's detailed documentation. The board members' expressions transformed from skepticism to shock to grim resolution. The hospital's legal counsel had immediately contacted the district attorney's office. William, of course, knew none of this, as he accepted congratulations for his upcoming award. He didn't know that police officers were positioned at every exit waiting for the signal from Agent Dawson. Didn't know that his perfectly constructed life was minutes from implosion. I mingled quietly, accepting condolences for my failing marriage from colleagues' wives who'd always seen me as nothing more than an accessory to William's brilliance. So brave of you to come tonight, whispered Margaret Reynolds, the chief of surgery's wife. Her sympathy was genuine, even as her eyes tracked William and Rebecca. I wouldn't miss seeing William receive the recognition he deserved, I replied with a smile that made her visibly uncomfortable. The award ceremony proceeded as planned. The hospital board chair, Dr. Helena Winters, decided that the public revelation would be more effective than a quiet arrest. William ascended the stage to thunderous applause, accepting the crystal trophy with practiced humility. Medicine isn't just science, he intoned into the microphone. It's a sacred trust between doctor and patient. Ethics must guide every decision, every procedure, every moment in the operating room. I watched Rebecca during his speech, the slight tension in her shoulders, the calculated adoration in her eyes. She was playing a role just as I had for 15 years, but for very different reasons. Our gazes met briefly across the room, and something passed between us, a recognition of sorts. Two women who knew the real William Carter. After the ceremony, they left for Venzo just as planned. I followed 20 minutes later, the cream and op secure in my clutch. The restaurant hadn't changed. White tablecloth, soft lighting, Italian opera playing softly in the background. The matron recognized me immediately. Mrs. Carter, how wonderful to see you again. Your husband mentioned you might join them. Hating William was either supremely confident or setting the stage for some public humiliation. Either way, it played perfectly into my plan. They were seated at our old favorite table near the windows. William had ordered the 1982 Bordeaux we'd shared on our anniversary 5 years ago. The bottle between them cost more than a month of groceries for our children. William saw me first. His expression shifted from surprise to smugness, clearly assuming I'd come to make some desperate plea. Rebecca turned, her perfect features arranging themselves into a mask of polite concern. Jennifer Williams' voice carried that patronizing tone he perfected. This is unexpected, is it? I approached their table calm and collected. You told the matri I might join you, a courtesy mention. I didn't think you'd actually come. Rebecca shifted uncomfortably. Perhaps I should give you two a moment. Please stay, I replied, meeting her gaze directly. After all, you've earned your place at this table, Rebecca. Or should I call you Rebecca Harrington? The color drained from her face. William's brow furrowed in confusion. What are you talking about? He demanded. Rebecca knows, don't you? Rebecca, daughter of Meline Harrington, the patient whose death you covered up. William, the woman whose heart valve you replaced while exhausted from your weekend with her daughter in Chicago. Ironic, isn't it? William turned to Rebecca, comprehension dawning. Is this true? Her silence was confirmation enough. I seized the momentary confusion to place the cream-colored envelope on the table. Congratulations on your freedom, I said quietly. I think you'll find this interesting reading. William's hand trembled slightly as he opened it, removing the DNA test results. I watched as his expression transformed: confusion, then disbelief, then horror as understanding dawned. This is impossible, he whispered. Is it you? Ensured your sperm was never used during our IVF treatments. You falsified medical records. You lied to me for 15 years about our children's very existence. Rebecca stared at the paper, then at William. What is she talking about? Nothing, William snapped, attempting to regain control. Jennifer's fabricating stories because she can't accept our divorce. Then you won't mind explaining this to the hospital board, I replied, gesturing toward the restaurant entrance where Dr. Winters and several board members now stood with Agent Dawson, or to the district attorney's office, or to our children. William's face contorted with rage. You vindictive, choose your next words carefully. Agent Dawson interrupted, approaching our table. Dr. William Carter, I'm placing you under arrest for medical fraud, financial crimes, and ethical violations under the Medical Practice Act. The restaurant fell silent as Dawson recited Miranda rights. Rebecca sat, frozen, her own revenge supplanted by something far more comprehensive than she planned. You've been planning this, William hissed as an officer handcuffed him. All those months of playing the able ex-wife, 15 years, William. You had 15 years of living your life. I needed 3 months to expose it. As they led him away, Rebecca remained at the table staring at her half-empty wine glass. I didn't know about the children, she said quietly. I believe you, I replied. Your mother deserved justice too. In the weeks that followed, the story exploded across medical and mainstream news. William faced multiple felony charges, his medical license suspended pending trial. The fertility clinic was shut down pending a complete investigation. Dozens of families came forward seeking answers about their children's genetic origins. The financial repercussions were immediate and comprehensive. William's hidden assets were frozen. The court appointed a forensic accountant who traced every dollar he diverted. My children's financial future was secured through a trust established with recovered funds. Dr. Brooks approached me after William's preliminary hearing. Ashford is establishing an ethics review committee to oversee reproductive services. When they reopen, they've asked me to lead it. Congratulations, I said sincerely. Actually, I suggested we co-chair it. Your perspective would be invaluable. The offer surprised me. For 15 years I'd been Jennifer Carter, the surgeon's supportive wife. My identity had been subsumed by William's career, his needs, his image. Now I was being asked to step forward as myself. 6 months after the gala, I sat across from Rebecca at a different restaurant. Our unlikely alliance had formed during the legal proceedings. 2 women manipulated by the same man for different reasons. Do you regret it? She asked, exposing everything. The children will eventually learn the truth. I considered her question carefully. They'll learn that their origins aren't what we thought, but that doesn't change who they are or how much I love them. The foundation of their lives was built on lies. I chose truth, however difficult. That night, watching my children sleep in the home we kept despite William's attempts to force its sale, I felt something unexpected. Not satisfaction or vindication, but liberation. The perfect family illusion had shattered, but in its place was something authentic. I was no longer living someone else's carefully constructed lie. For the first time in 15 years, I was authoring my own story, messy, complicated, and absolutely mine.